Good afternoon and good morning or good evening wherever you are. Welcome to the Fireside chat of the GCH Global Cities Hub on AI and the Citiverse. My name is András Szerényi. It is my pleasure to be the host of this great discussion today with our two distinguished speakers. On my left, Ivica Puljak, former mayor of Split, and on my right, Sami Kanan, former mayor of Geneva. Let me start with the quick introductions. Sami Kanan is former mayor of Geneva. He was member of the Executive Council of the City of Geneva between 2011 and 2005. He was mayor of Geneva 3 times, and he was in charge of culture, sports, international relations, and then after 2020, digitalization. One of the reasons you are here, implementing a proactive, effective, and comprehensive digitalization policy for the city. He is also chair since 2016 of the Federal Commission for Childhood and Youth, consultative body of the federal authorities of Switzerland. Last but not least, or perhaps most importantly, he was one of the founders of the Global Cities Hub, and it's always great to have you back here in the hub. Ivica Puljak is the former mayor of Split. He is a politician, a particle physicist, and a professor at the University of Split. He served as mayor of Split from 2021 to 2025 and was the president of the political party Center. He was head of the department and vice dean for science and informatics, but also board of directors of the Ruder Boskovic Institute in Zagreb. During 2011 and 2012, he was a researcher associate at CERN, and his research contributed to the discovery of the famous Higgs boson, one of the main discoveries of CERN. Both of you are former mayors, and both of you follow technological issues very closely. My hope today is that we will speak your opinion based on your experience as mayor, but without the constraints you might have had as mayors on forward-looking, future-looking technologies like the Citiverse and AI of these days. Today is also the day of the launch of Global Cities Hub's new policy paper, the Transformative Power of AI-enabled Citiverse. You are all free to download it from our website, which I had the pleasure to co-author with Grace Jimenez with us here in the room. We offer in this paper an approach on governance, how the Citiverse, the AI-enabled Citiverse, will transform local governance and also help the reader to find multilateral platforms where you can follow the work of the international community, find tools, and also look for solutions to your questions. And with you, gentlemen, here in the room, my aim is to discuss a little bit further and ask your opinion about the potential of the technology, but also on the challenges of governance of these technologies. What you think your fellow mayors will face or are already facing in the real world. So if you are ready, let's start with the first very obvious and easy question. How digital tools, including the AI, support, in your views, municipal service delivery and how it transforms local governance? In our paper, we say it's a transformative technology. It will transform local governance. Do you agree with that, or do you have a different opinion? Who wants to start? Ivica?
Well, first, thank you very much for inviting me here. You know that Geneva is my second place where I spend most of my life, basically. So to Geneva since 1993. That's a very, very long time. And I was 4 years mayor of the city of Split, but I'm actually a scientist, and I use my scientific background always well, I'm using this in everyday life, and I use it as when I was a mayor. And one of the most important aspects of this scientific background was that to always look for the data and the proof. And I think what is happening, and I'm a very big fan of technology, but I think the most important technology is actually the governance. That's exactly what you actually insisted in your paper, because AI and this what is coming, I think that it will be great, at least in the next 20 to 30 years, with the new technological tools, particularly AI. But these tools are enhancing what we already have or capabilities. So, and there are certain risks in that if you have not optimal things happening in your cities, and then you involve technologies in this, that you will actually amplify these negative aspects of the cities. So, and it is very important. It is actually out of the utmost importance that we insist that mayors and the city governments are using these technological tools in order to democratize the access to the intelligence and to AI, and to increase the participation of the citizens. And it is for the first time, I think, in the history that we have ability that we presently, I think all the mayors, we all had difficulties when we would like to do something to present to our citizens what are our intentions and how actually what will happen in the future. Now we have tools which are appearing that we can even explain to our citizens and involve them before we even make something, in order to present them what will be the outcome of certain policies that we would like to do. So these technologies, short, will amplify everything, and it is up to us to ensure that, and to the government to ensure that all the positive things are amplified and the negative things are actually.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me too. I'm very happy also to notice that we are not only don't have in common the fact that we are former mayors, but also physicists. My first degree was in physics in Zurich. But I didn't keep going on it, contrary to you. You're very good at in physics. And SEM is obviously a major institution. If you expected a contradictory debate, disappointed because I obviously agree with what said, but also in my experience, I used to say in the city administration that digitalization, even before AI, is primarily a human issue, being individually or collectively, and then a governance issue far more than a technical issue. And we know that the big companies, all companies, are eager to sell products, solutions, and systems, with the risk that you buy expensive products often, you get dependent on them, you don't ensure that the old city servants, not even talking as population, over the internal staff, because you have a digital divide also among the staff, do not get it, and so it ends up in a failure, or at least a lot of frustration, because it creates expectation you cannot meet. As you said, it's an amplificator, it's an accelerator, it's a huge potential, but also a huge potential for problems, depending on how you set it. And we were very, very careful about trying to already get with us as the administration as such. So the Geneva is 4,500 people, more or less, with all kinds of, field of activities, being gardeners, IT people, lawyers, social workers, and huge diversity. But then by comparison, the population too. But it's indeed a powerful tool. The first step is, because all this is based on data. And most cases, the city realize will start digitalizing that the database is not in good shape. You have huge amounts of data, but not the same formats, not with a systematic approach. We try, for example, to define data, but maybe we have too much data sometimes. We don't need to keep everything all the time, also in terms of privacy. And so one of the very first steps, it's not the most fascinating, but crucial, is a decent data policy. And awareness and then management of data, it's not easy. Because also you have different habits and traditions, between the people. So often you have silo effect in the administration very quickly. But it's a powerful tool for predictive analysis, for analysis as such, for interface with the population, decision-making tool, and to help to increase or improve the interface with the population and the administration, maybe make some process much quicker for decision. People need decisions, on social support, for example, or housing. But with avoiding having like illusions that it's like a paradise issue, hoping that it will solve like everything. I fully agree with you. It can also amplify problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it needs a very in-depth strategy. So it's a lot of work actually, and not easy work. It's not just importing. It's not like buying furniture. You buy a new office, fine, it's nice. No, it's really it's often underestimated.
Thank you. I would like to come back to this question of citizen interface and also the data question. But first, let me jump on what you said. It's that it might be a tool to show the future, not predict, but to give an example how the future development might be in the city as a good tool. In a more general term, what do you think, what is the biggest motivation for a mayor to want to have a Citiverse, to want to build a Citiverse and use AI in local governance? And is it depending on the mayor's personal affiliation, or is it more a general trend we will see in the future?
Both.
Both.
When I took over the digitalization domain in the city, I even put the name in the title for the department. Digital transition. And people were teasing me like, come on, with that. I mean, it's a technical issue. When you IT unit suddenly such a culture, social, urban planning, finance, because it's a political question. And we could prove it, and it was people were interested. So you need both, obviously, technical skills, I mean, as administration, but you need the political support and understanding, which doesn't mean we need to be an expert. I mean, you are not as such an IT expert, I'm not, but we need an understanding of the crucial issues, which are not technical, as you said, governance, human management. Typically, the younger generation has another approach to it than the older one. And I talked, for example, German colleagues, they said, let's be honest, most managers are like around their 50s. They're not digital natives. They know they should do something, but they are lost. So they're afraid. And they feel also threatened more or less by young people who like challenging them, old fashioned, also generation gap. So it's primarily a management issue. And this is very important that you can have an old scale, because if you only define a big policy, but it doesn't follow up, it's useless. If especially design something, but there's no political support. I remember very interesting discussions in the parliament, city parliament, we needed money. And they asked a lot of good questions. In Switzerland, the parliamentarians are not professional as such. Citizens' questions, about that, about everything. So we learned to take it seriously. And so it needs a coherence between all layers of the local government.
Well, I agree. I obviously agree on everything. First of the flights technology, and it helped. In my case, for example, it helped a lot because, for example, when we were introducing digitalization of paperless administration, I did it in 1 week because everything was ready, but nobody was using that when I came. And then I said, look, next week there is no paper anymore. Everybody was scared, but then in the week everybody adapted because I said I will not sign it by paper. I will only sign it by computer. And then this helped. But it shouldn't be that the mayor should be technologically good. Otherwise, it would be a problem for democracy because there are only few people like that. So what should be important that we develop the culture of always asking for approval and data, because as Tammy said, there are a lot of companies coming to sell you something. But then you should ask them, well, prove me that this is what you promised that it will actually happen. On which due base you promise? Did you do any simulation or whatever? The second thing is we should always keep in mind that the governance and the problem solving is much more important than the technology, because technological solutions are now present everywhere and it's basically easy to find them. And sometimes we have the technological solutions for the problems that are not so important. For example, in our city, we had so many applications for everything. And then I said, we don't need any new applications, or any new application should actually, you should integrate it in our application, which is only one, because then people will not use them. So these are all important things. And the third is actually, it's always about people. You should find a good team to develop these things. And it's much more difficult to motivate people and the citizens to use these solutions than to develop them. This is at least my experience.
Can I jump on this? How, in your experience, how can you motivate citizens to want to use technological novelties, digital services, or a Citiverse future?
It's always what we actually developed as some kind of, we wanted to develop some kind of motivation in the following way. For example, we said we will have only one application for anything. Then you should always, if it is anything which is connected with the city, you should go to that application. That's the first thing. The second one, for example, we said you should pay all your bills through our application, which is for free. Then, in order to get people to use it, we were developing even some kind of loyalty program. In order, if you pay your bills in 1 or 2 weeks, then you will get some extra points for the theater, for example. And because you should, what I think, which is also very important, particularly for the younger generation, we should be a part of the modern world. If we are too disconnected from the modern world, then our citizens will tell us, look, you are old, slow, because they have in the phone, they have every day, they have everything personalized, 24 hours a day, always present. If you are not like that, as a city government, they will actually think that you are outdated. This is one thing. And the second is, if you really want to include your citizens in the future planning, because the conventional tools, committees, plan developments, paper reports, doesn't work anymore. This is too slow. And we should, because the world is really moving very fast. Now we are getting tools which can enable citizens to see what's going to happen if we construct a neighborhood somewhere, what's going to happen with the traffic, with the environment, and everything else. And then you can really involve them if you want. This is very good for democracy, because most of people, they don't understand how the decisions are actually brought in the city government. They don't understand what is the connection. Sometimes they just care about what is the small neighborhood. They don't see that all the cities connected. Now we are getting the tools, which is actually these digital twins and the whole Citiverse, which will enable us to bring people together, and so that they can participate in everyday life and in the longer term plan.
Do you agree with that? Something that the AI-enabled Citiverse with all its virtual and physical realities will strengthen democracy and civil participation?
If it's designed on a transparent and inclusive way, because obviously now we live a period where AI is very much discussed. It brings both big fears and also big enthusiasm, both may be excessive in a way. I remember I haven't read the study, but a summary of it, MIT in the US made not a summary study about the first experience in AI of major companies in the US. I've seen it, and 95% said it was a failure. Because they use it like a simple tool supposed to increase massively productivity, efficiency in the business, and underestimated the human factor, the jobs, the skills, the decision-making processes, because even that may change if you use AI. So again, it's tough work actually to do it in a proper way. And with the population, as we said, the decision-making processes are more and more complex. You have laws, you have safety concerns, you have compromises. Typically in Geneva, I guess most cities have this issue. We are complaining we don't have enough housing, but whenever you plan a new area, there will be challenges because people don't want buildings, they want to keep the green area. So it's a permanent struggle. So it's both the more factual and objective dimension of things, of urban planning, for example, but also how to improve the interaction with the population. Switzerland has a tradition of consulting people in different ways, voting, but not only. Now AI, you can simulate, as we say, you can really, but people have to understand if you use the right data, you're manipulating, so it has to be very transparent and credible. And we saw during the COVID Corona pandemic that trust in authorities is something fragile. The new vaccine is really safe. So the trust of the population in authority is rather sinking on average.
Yeah.
One of the worst is US. And it's obviously far easier to destroy the trust than to build it. So we need to take really the time. And one of the challenges is that some people are eager about using IT tools and some are not, being because they don't know it or because they don't want. Our parliament voted, for example, a text saying that whatever we do, we have to keep a direct human access for people who don't want to use an app.
Mm-hmm.
It's a minority, but on the other hand, we have been put under pressure. I was in charge of sport in the past, and even registering to just rent a badminton court, you had to call a number, which was always busy. So the poor guy who was at the phone everybody was angry at him because he didn't answer earlier. He wrote it by hand in a big booklet, and you had to pay by cash when arriving. Out of sight.
Yeah.
Game over. Exchange. So there is a pressure on, like a competition, you have to improve while being very secure, because people expect from local governments that they are secure in terms of cybersecurity. And we have had, like everywhere, these experiences, not city of Geneva, but smaller city where act, and it's very harmful and it's painful. Or making false promises. I remember, but everybody has to make experiences. Some British cities years ago introduced like interfaces where people could, say that this is broken, a lamp in the street or something. They underestimated that they would be like overthrown with announcements and not organize the process to take care of it, which is far worse.
Exactly.
Then people are disappointed. So we have to think the whole process. But if you do it well, yes, I'm sure that. And the last one in the administration, when I left, we were confronted with the issue, which is obvious, that some of civil servants are starting to use AI agents on their own because they're curious, because it may help summarizing a big report, typically translation or whatever, or researchers, but they were not yet a framework. So we had to remind them very simple rules: don't put in confidential, at least not without authorization, into LGBT or what else. But use it if it makes sense. We defined the use case, the basic one where it's before defining a more collective approach to AI agents. And again, it takes time.
I liked very much this caveat that trust, although all analysis shows that trust in authorities is highest at the local level and the national level, but that it's easy to lose trust. Do I understand correctly that, do I translate it correctly, what you said, that it's better to be slower in implementation, but more secure, that you will not ruin trust, rather than run ahead with something new and sexy and run the risk that it will fail?
What you can do is you may be a bit more risk fun if you do pilot projects, but defined as such. We even try to have like sandbox approach, where you can take a small unit of administration with a specific task and test something, but it's defined as such. So it also means that mistakes are tolerated, that you have something to correct if something is wrong, because you also need to take risks. You also need to innovate and test things, and whenever you test things, you may have problems. But indeed, if you go too fast in a more general system where people depend on reliability, because administration takes decision on your life, whatever, and it fails, I mean, it may happen, but the damage may be big.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Actually, that was a good example. If you facilitate people to report the problems and you don't have the service which will actually respond quickly, then actually you are doing a wrong thing, because then citizens, they expect when they report the problem, it will be solved immediately. If you don't do it right, this is why we, for example, we inverted it. We first created a help desk system which is propagating these complaints inside our city government. And then later on, we opened all the communication channels. Once we are sure that it will be processed, otherwise it will be even worse. And then this is repeating again that the AI and all the technology is actually amplifying. And for example, AI is a technology which is learned. And if you give them to learn from the problems, it might amplify the problems. If you don't tell it properly, that these are the problems that should be solved. So it can increase it can increase the how to say, in all the cities we would like to make it equally developed, to develop more underdeveloped part of the cities. But if you don't do it right, you can actually get it worse. To less developed, the underdeveloped, the more developed, the developed already, the developed parts. And another aspect which I think for me it's very important, because city is the Mediterranean. And people, they tend to live in the streets, and they're living less and less. And this is happening everywhere. People are actually now, because of the technology, it is always easier to get up to how to say to entertain yourself. People, I think that they are starting to avoid communication. So this is what I think that we should actually insist more: how to use technology to get rid of technology. The example is actually, in Spain, we developed a project of the very nice beach. We actually invested 50 million euros on the nice beach, and it's very nice. You should visit. It's very nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And actually, during that project, I insisted a lot. And now I think that they will develop it further. How to use technology when you are on the beach to get rid completely of the technology, to enjoy the beach and the nature. And this is, I think, and actually technology can help us in this. This today, you have your what you can do everything, pay, communicate, or whatever. You don't need screens and everything else. So I think that, this is now, and this is why we should insist more how to use technology to get rid of it, because we are, and there is an interesting trend in today's world that the young people, they are using less and less technology, but the older people, they are using it more.
Very interesting. Data for sure shows it clearly, and that brings me to a very concrete question. Can you tell us examples where, for sure, you would use AI in the local municipal services, where you would start to build the Citiverse? What would be those areas? More social, more economic, more governance? How do you see it?
For example, I would use it to develop a digital twin of the city. This I know because we actually here at CERN, in which we developed a digital twin of our experiment, which is 500 million euros experiment. We first developed it in the computer, and then we build it. While in the city, we usually use, it was before, like, you build something, or the neighborhood, or the new traffic solution, and then later on you realize whether it is good or not. Hopefully it's good. But now we have the tools, which is the digital thing, which we can simulate what's going on in the city, the traffic. For example, if you have the football match, the big event in your city, you can simulate how the people will actually interact in the city. You can optimize it. You can mitigate the risk of disasters, because we live now in the world in which there are more and more extreme events. and you can mitigate it in advance, which is very, very important. This is not, I mean, this is not for the politicians. They always tend to do short-term things. But this is helping in the shorter term planning and also in the longer term planning for the city, which is even more. So if I would implement it, I would first try to create a digital twin of the offer that can simulate what's going that every morning when you come into your office, good morning, Mayor, this is what will happen probably today in your city. And then you can get not only you, but the whole government.
Yes, it's a powerful tool. Again, it's related to the quality and reliability of your data. So I think first you train with not even planning the future, but assessing the present situation in a better way than did before in terms of database. Something is complex is even in local politics, you have sometimes like a conflict between more the political game, power games, political parties, and or more objective data-based, scientific or objective approach. It shouldn't be contradictory. Traditionally, Geneva is a relatively small city, international scale, 200,000 inhabitants. Database policy making was not that systematic. Partly, for example, the law makes it obligatory, which is good, to assess the need for future schools, depending on the urban planning. And there have been mistakes. They missed some trends sometimes. It's not the exact scientific, mathematical, perfect, 100%. But we can improve it because we have data, we have actually a lot, but how to use it properly. And to always understand how the data analysis went, because one of the issues AI, more complex it becomes, more difficult it is to understand how the AI agent, whatever it is, came from point A to point B. And some experts, that's the most, not frightening, but at least worrying aspect, that human beings are still able to understand how the AI, made any conclusion or statement. Because, you can trust to some extent, but AI based on data which is originally human. So, it may make mistakes. We know hallucination is, so the ability to still check it. And, but I guess at local government, you can organize in such a way that you can have more reliable decision making processes by having better use of the data available. And then, as you said, simulation of what will happen with traffic, with urban planning, a new area, what it means in terms of circulation of people. And then you can make scenarios. It's cheaper on AI than physical, making whether you have public transport or not, to convince that you have to have public transport. Historically, the city of Geneva is very proud because we have a small-scale model of the city, a twin, but a physical one, with wood. And it's still being adapted to any major changes, buildings, new areas. And people love it. It takes more or less, the area we have here. And that the people are able to see the city not only on a map, two-dimensional, but three-dimensional, makes it much more like real. And obviously with AI, you can make far more subtle and, detailed simulations. And even you make it immersive, that people can even go into it. But again, always the question of the quality of data, the transparency of the analytical process, who is responsible for it. You need to have clear responsibilities. But at the end, like we were talking about nuclear accidents, at the end, nobody is responsible. It's a bit extreme example. And then interface with the population. We have a lot of questions of the population. We initiated a project in the city of Geneva under my responsibility, QA, at the physical desk, people could come with any question on IT, even simple ones, iPhones, the computer, cybersecurity, antivirus, software. And typically, the first to come were rather women, because women assume to ask questions, because men are like, oh, I'm good at everything. Finally, they come, like, oh, I have some questions. Young people, because they know a lot of things, but they're aware of all the things they don't know. And it's very successful. We make like training sessions on specific issues. And there is a huge need with subsidized innovative projects on inclusion. They came all a lot through the pandemic because everything went online. in Croatia to more people working there to manage life online. So this is crucial because if not, then we have a three-class society. And the other questions we have is obviously now about what you call in Latin digital sovereignty. How far are we related to the big ones? I mean, the big companies, especially the US ones or the Chinese ones. And how are Europeans still able to have like alternatives? Not easy. Because you know that these companies, they take the data, they don't give it back to you. And the specialist told me it's not even a data war, it's a cognitive war because they use our own intelligence to train their own agents. And then they commercialize your intelligence, you have to pay for your own contribution in a way. So they are too powerful.
This question of data is very important. Mentioned earlier. Both of you mentioned the vendor lock-in when companies provide the services for the municipal government, and it was also mentioned the data. What do you think? How can a local government, a municipal government, assure that it owns the data, or at least it has the power to handle the data?
Well, this is probably connected to the laws of the national laws, even the European laws. So this is always you would like, even in my personal life, I really like technology, and I'm enabling all of the things that are connected with technology because I think it's facilitating the life and providing more and more data. And in one hand, I would like to provide more data in order to the tools to adapt and to use this data better. And another way, you would like to protect this data that are not misused. And we are always finding the balance. And I think in the modern world, we found the balance somehow. You know how I see it. I think that the modern world is better every day. And the world is actually, we live today in the best world ever. It's not ideal, and it will be better, but it's the best ever. We are moving in the good direction overall. The world is moving in the good directions. And we always have to find balance. And this is yet another balance that we have to find. What is the amount of data we will provide? And then to keep to keep our life, private life. This is connected also with the, overlap technology. People would like to have phones available everywhere, but they wouldn't like the antenna of their building, which is, so we have to find the balance. And I think in the technology, this balance is more and more important. And I always emphasize, and I repeat it always, that we should really keep democracy going and provide the access to this technology and the access to intelligence, which will become very more and more important to the AI tools, to provide the access to the intelligence and the technologies to everyone in order to decrease these differences.
We have a nuance that I agree with you, but with a nuance. We live in a interesting world, but also huge risks in terms of the environmental but also safety at the point. Not always considered afraid, it's wars, global situation.
It was worse before.
Depending on the period. But anyway, a few years. No, but anyway, I think we have to fight. They always quote the Marxist writer. The name will come back. That said, he's pessimist if he is realistic, but he's optimist because he wants to be realistic. And Gramsci, famous, he was in jail, he had a lot of time to write. So that years. Anyway, and so we have at least to decide to be optimistic. We say keep control of our future collected and democratically, because at the moment, democracy, this report that makes the state of the art of democracy. Right now, it's very what we call democracy fatigue, because the world is becoming so complex, not only because of AI, currently, but people tend, we see, to believe people having like simple solutions.
Democracy
okay, with that stake, yeah. And I can even understand, I cannot approve, but I can understand because so complex that you have a feeling that classical democratic governments in Western Europe, for example, or Eastern Europe, did not succeed in managing the big issues. So let's believe the people who, like Trump in the US or Orban in Hungary, then you will realize that they're far more better than works anyway. But to come back to our issue is the data issue, as you said, it's a very good example, the mobile phone antennas. You want a good network, but you don't want an antenna on your house. It's a classical phenomenon. So you have to explain what it means. You have to be very transparent about the risks, because people have always old stories. Remember a time when tobacco, it's not dangerous. They were lying. Or the industry selling pesticides for the plants. Uh, so I understand that people sometimes say, technology, you're wanting to sell it, so you're not really transparent about original, products. But you have to feel transparent on the backside. And the data, for example, City of Geneva had a very interesting discussion because we had to upgrade our systems. We decided after a big discussion to remain by Microsoft. And some people ask us to go on a more like Swiss or European solution. And we said for the size of the city, there is not yet. We would like to. There is not a solution which is as integrated and effective. You can buy solutions, but if you want the really integrated system where all the applications will interact. And we had a big discussion with Microsoft. We wanted the data to be in Switzerland. And we checked the legal aspect because there is, you were mentioning national or European laws, but we know that the US is their laws. The access for judges for this.
They can have the access.
That we had some guarantees. But we were criticized, but it was an interesting case. But we also tried to invest in sort product with maybe one day, a local alternative. So it's on both sides. And the data question was a lot discussed, who has access to data at which point. For example, nowadays a citizen may ask the city, actually, what do we have data on me? You could ask City of Geneva or Split. And something very simple, like you were registered in the library as a user of the library, nothing problematic. But you came to one conference, as a participant. But it was a panic in the administration because we have no centralized way to collect it because it was not connected. I realized that we have sometimes too much data. So it's also a good learning process.
Thank you. You mentioned local, global, different countries. That brings me to my very last question with two brief answers. The cooperation aspect of all these. How do you see, from your experience, when something new, like now an AI-enabled Citiverse development, comes to the mind of a mayor, who do you turn to discuss, to consult? Are you more city to city or city networks or cooperation with international organizations or national governments? What do you think is the best platform to discuss these issues?
Well, I also think all of it. Oh. I'm coming from CERN, which is the biggest collaboration network in the world. This is the place in which the whole world is communicating and collaborating with each other. And I cannot overstate the importance of collaboration on all levels, mayors to mayor. I learn most from my fellow mayors that actually make mistakes or even get good practices or bad practices. Yeah. Then from the networks of mayors, and then from the international organization like ITU or UN or the Global City Hub that you are running. This is all, and we have to all listen to these, collect experiences, and then the best practices also. And if we are actually developing something which is even more advanced than anybody else, to share this among others. And this is the best way to proceed.
I agree. Actually, the intercity, cities, the local, national, international is very useful. You learn a lot because it's interesting. Among local elected or professionals, you are quite honest, as you say, also the bad experiences. Yeah. You don't have to make show of if you're inside a room and learning process. And it's sometimes more interesting to learn from mistakes than from successes. Yeah, that's what. City networks, all of them, most of them are very interesting. And I mean, especially ITU, but other ones are trying, because local governments are now the friendly partner in international cooperation. Everybody talks about local governments as it's both pragmatic, innovative. They have to cope with reality, much more international governments, and it's less complicated, less diplomatic, less tense. One of the issues, because you also have to talk to innovators, private business, but being careful that you don't fall in the trap of just buying gadgets, as we said before. You need to confront, real, even private companies with testing products, and be aware of the public administration, something else, other constraints, other obligations, other responsibilities. But between local governments, and important both at elected level, mayors, but also professionals, to really learn from each other. I learned from experience in Germany. Unfortunately, we didn't match it yet in Switzerland. They did it in Austria. They bring what they call the GovTech campus. And the fantastic idea was because Germany is like Switzerland, is the federal government proposes something, the latter would say no by reflex, and vice versa. And Switzerland is the same. So created like a facultative club of civil service manager level and agencies who just had needs. As a digitalized thing, you did it. How did you do it? Avoid buying, as we said, the wrong solution. And learn mutual learning, training sessions, mutualization of corporate tenders. When you buy something, you get together, they're stronger. And they're all members. And it's like, because it was like bottom up in a way, based on the real needs. And all these managers were lost. Finally, I have to come talk to. Because top down is useful sometimes, but in a federal system, sometimes it's complicated. But even in centralistic, I remember France, but they have sometimes a tendency to go from 0 to 100 in 2 days. So they realized that they were back behind with digitalization. So almost from one day to the other, everything became digital. But people were not prepared. Yeah, can imagine.
Thank you very much. Ivica, Sami, thank you very much for your insight, for your answers. Some of the questions are discussed further in our policy paper, and our discussion will continue in the future on this very important issue. Thank you very much for the time. Thank you for the audience for the attention.